everybody. 2018 was not the greatest of years for gaming. I mean, it wasn't the worst, but it was certainly no 2017. And to be honest, my personal year of gaming was not much better. Now, admittedly, nothing really stood out as god-awful, but for the most part, it was all mediocre. And finally, I'm here to share my ramblings with you. So, here is my 2 years too late, is my top 6, it was going to be 7, but I realised I'd made a mistake, top 6 most disappointing games that I played, not necessarily that were released, but the ones that I actually physically played in 2018. And, of course, we've got to start with an Ubisoft title. It is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. And by this point, I'm pretty sure I'm onto the method and madness that must go on at Ubisoft when they're making decisions on how and what to make. Hey, so I figured out a new way to make people play our old games for longer. But can we add more monetization that nobody wants? Well, I guess. Excellent. Anyway, what we do is we put out a really mediocre game, maybe promise a roadmap that we'll never stick to, and then when people are done complaining and all that, a year later we put out an even shittier game, so people are like, oh, but you could do that in that game. So then they go back to that game, and maybe if they traded it in, they buy it again, which means even more money coming from a game that we never really put that much effort into. Essentially, what you're saying is put out the same game, but take away beloved features. Exactly. Well, alrighty then. Or at least, I'm pretty sure that's how it goes after playing Breakpoint. Because Wildlands would have been much higher in this list had I not played that more recent title. So, yeah, I played Wildlands with May to December, aka, not aka, Malcolm, aka May to December. And, I mean, we had fun playing it together. But as a solo experience, it's definitely not good. And unfortunately, I hate the mentality of this make your own fun in a game, because it's like, I shouldn't have to pay $60 for, you know, I could have fun with a friend throwing stones in the road. I don't have to pay $60 for the experience. And unfortunately, too many companies now are relying on that mentality of putting out a crappy game that sometimes they fix later on down the line, but for the most part, they just expect you to deal with it. And that's kind of how I felt about Wildlands at the time. Because, yes, the factions are fun, you know, calling in stuff like equipment or extra resources, extra people to help. That kind of stuff is fun to manage. But otherwise, it relies too much on this open world that is massive. Except then they don't populate it. And you're just like, you're going through places and you're like, I've been here already. But further down, you know, literally like 2 feet down the road is an identical building. It's just frustrating in that sense and underwhelming. I mean, we played for 100 hours to clear the trophies. But, I mean, it's fun if you're putting in about 10, 20 hours. But beyond that is just painful. And we shouldn't be letting companies do this where they're just like, well, look, it's got a massive map. Yes, but unless the story is interesting... I mean, don't get me wrong, some people do not care about the story. Some people just care about the shooting and the fun like that. And for the most part, it's fun in that sense. But I personally, and this is why, again, I have to reiterate, this is games that I found disappointing. They're very personal, and I get that it's... Well, not the mic again. I get that it's a very personal choice. But it just felt very empty, and even worse is the DLC. I do not remember the names of them, so I apologise. One of them is very Predator-like and deals with these invisible camouflaged enemies, and that was kind of interesting, but just did not hold up at all. But the worst one was the first one, which was like the rewards for doing missions was based on influencer points. It was awful. It was ridiculous and relied way too much on racing and driving mechanics and tricks. And I don't mind driving in games, but a Ghost Recon game? I can't see mercenaries taking time to hang out with Instagram influencers or something. So it just felt really disjointed and really missed the mark for me. So yeah, that was Ghost Recon Wildlands. It has its moments. But at number 5, this pains me to put this here, it's Unravel 2. I was so looking forward to this. I loved the original Unravel. I put it in my the shout-outs list in my best of. Was it last 2017? Must have been. Or whatever. I loved that game. And then they announced, Unravel 2, and it was like, ooh, co-op. I get to play this with somebody else. But it's missing the heart that was in the first Unravel game. The first Unravel game was so quaint and sweet, and, you had this old lady who I think was dying or something. And you really cared, and you were seeing her memories and stuff from the past in these pictures, and then exploring those pictures. But in Unravel 2, you hook up with this other Yanni. There's no basis for why they just randomly kind of fuse their chords. And it can just be frustrating. Not the working with a partner, because that can be fun. But there does seem to be some element of the mechanics seem to be a little off at times. And story-wise, it just doesn't have the same heart. Although it tries to take the same beats, with showing flashes of the people and then them disappearing into dust and stuff like that. It just really didn't hit the same kind of feeling, like poignancy or that the first one had evoked. So yeah, it's not a bad game. It tried something different. It had these extra challenges and that. And again, it was fun to play in a cooperative setting. It was just really disappointing. I'm sorry. It's just, you're going to hear that word a lot in this list, because that's pretty much all they were. It just wasn't outstanding, whereas the first game just really stood out as something different but fun, and the platforming and that was fun. This just didn't have the same effect, so I'm sorry, I had to put it here. It had to be at number 5. Moving on to number 4 though, here we go with another sequel that disappointed. It's The Evil Within 2. And yes, it has better cover mechanics, better graphics, obviously. The guy playing Sebastian, who's a different actor from the first title, he is a lot better. Although, that said, I always felt like the voice acting in the first one really lent to its kind of very Eastern feel. That very Japanese kind of badly dubbed Resident Evil 1 feel that it had, mixing in with the surrealism of the game. But number 2 is very, very westernized, and I don't know if that's a Bethesda publishing, as the publisher kind of maybe meddling a little bit or what. It's just very westernized, and that's not normally an issue. As I've said time and time again, my appreciation of surreal art and storytelling is definitely not very definitely not very good. I'm not a fan of that kind of thing normally at all. But the surrealism in The Evil Within 1 works so well, and the characters in that with Ruvik and that was so much more compelling, and the gameplay, you know, managing your matches, what bodies you were going to set on fire, and ammo and stuff like that was so much tighter. Don't get me wrong, again, the game was flawed, but it was just an interesting survival horror package. Whereas number 2, it's trying to retread the traits of the first game and falling flat so hard. There's no interest in... I wasn't really compelled by the characters. The sections with Kidman at the end was really random, and I felt a little badly balanced and badly edited, kind of in this... It was just really bad. And I just didn't find that, like I say, I love the stealth mechanics in this game. Works so much better until you go into a bush. That is the worst. It gives you this white outline for where you are to show you where you are. But you can't see anything outside of where you're hidden, which defies the point, because you're like, well, I know there's an enemy nearby, but I can't see anything. How do I know when I can come out safely? So that I felt was really badly handled and really needed reworking. You could say, oh, but that hypes up the suspense and stuff, but it didn't for me. It just really, really frustrated me. So, yeah, just overall underwhelming, I felt. I just felt that it could have done so much more. Having watched more recently somebody's playthrough of the first Evil Within game, I'm starting to see the stuff that was kind of that I hadn't even considered, because I didn't really think a sequel was necessary. But then you start to see the threads that were actually put in the first game, and you're like, oh, and then they do pay off in the sequel for the most part. And there are a couple of things I think are still a little kind of retweaked to try and make it work a bit better. But yeah, no, I can't explain it. It's not, and the ending, there's so much to do with the wife that I found a little unnecessarily confusing and pointless, and I don't want to go into spoilers, but yeah, I was just like, but why? But why like that? Why like that? And just the whole stuff with, this is a kind of spoiler, but they build all this stuff up with Father Theodore, and then nothing happens, and you end up just retreading previous boss battles from the first game. And you're like, really? I'm not going to fight this guy? This guy who's been the antagonist for a good couple of hours or so in the game? And I'm just going to have to rebeat the bosses from the first game. That's so lazy. And just genuinely disappointing. I think it had its peak with like the Stefano fight, and then just lost its way. So yeah, The Evil Within 2, it had some stuff that it refined from the first game that worked brilliantly. But otherwise, it just did not have that special kind of je ne sais quoi that the first game had, you know, where the first game... You could always say that the sequel does more kind of action-wise, and you could say that that's good. But for me, there was just a lot of flavour missing that was in the first game. So that's why I had to put this here. At number 3, we have Kirby AllStars for the Nintendo Switch. And here's the thing. I am a massive Kirby fan. I love Kirby. I love the original games. But this game, it tried with the whole, oh, friendship is amazing. Play this game with your friends. And the thing is I've always felt that Nintendo games, especially in the platformer sense, have not always handled party play in the greatest. You know, it always feels like punishment to your friends to play a game with them, because you can run off the screen and leave them behind and they die. You can, pick them up and throw them and all that stuff. But normally, for the most part, they're still fun and a laugh, and you start to hate each other as a result. And I am pretty sure, having played other Nintendo party games, that they really want you to hate your friends. But Kirby AllStars, All-Star Allies, which really plays for this kind of, friendship, do everything together and that, again, just doesn't work. It wants you to... It's not like your friend starts out with you as a separate Kirby. You have to take over an enemy and make them a friend, and then use that friend. Now, again, you can, as with previous titles, that buddy that you take over can be an AI buddy. But if you're playing with a friend, that friend is waiting there until an enemy comes along that is worth taking over, and then they're relying on that one power, and they are so easily disposable, and so easily just relying on you to do the work for them, and they're just there to do like one task or something. It just felt really... I played this with Donna a bit, after playing it on my own. And it didn't work as a co-op experience. She had a little fun. She does not like Kirby at all. But I just really struggled with it, because I felt as a friend game, it was really struggling. And the fact that you can only have like 3 other buddies means that then you're waiting for the right power to come along. And yeah, that's fine. That's management and stuff like that. But your friend shouldn't be, so can I be somebody now? Or going, well, can I be the main Kirby and then you be the... It shouldn't be like that. You should be on a equal fun patch. And I just didn't find that. And also, it is so short. And, okay, fine, it's a kids game. But it is so easy. You can just run through this game. It's ridiculous. Some levels, you can literally probably just hold the stick in a direction, maybe press jump a couple times, and you're at the end. It's that simple. And yeah, fine, that's good for kids and that, but even kids have more fun on a slightly harder difficulty with some games. So I just felt like it was, Nintendo have done other kids' games that are really easy, and yet they've been fun, like the Yoshi's Woolly World and stuff like that. So I don't know why this just really struggled with the concept of being a fun friend party game. It just didn't do it for me, and that's so disappointing as a result. I genuinely finished it and was like, oh. But Kirby game, it's been like an hour. It's just painfully short and painfully underwhelming, and that's why I had to put it here. Had I not had the other 2 titles ahead of this, it probably would have been higher, because I was genuinely gutted by this one. At number 2, we have Strange Brigade, and trust me, it took a lot for me to not put this at the number 1 spot. If I'm honest, number 1 and 2 should be equal spot the worst. Because, oh my god, Strange Brigade has to be not only the most disappointing, but the most frustrating game. Well, again, except for number 1. It is so frustratingly disappointing, I guess. Because, as I've said in previous, when I talked about Sniper Elite 4 before, May to December and I are big players of the games released by Rebellion. So we're talking about the Sniper Elite series, the Zombie Army trilogy, Zombie Army series. And so when Strange Brigade was announced, was genuinely interested and intrigued. This kind of 1920s, 1930s style film, adventure film, feel, with this very old-time radio announcer kind of talking to you about the adventures of tomorrow. And it was such a bizarre concept with these very Indiana Jones settings, these kind of archaeologists in a way, banding together to go to these places and then take on skeletons. It it felt a little confused, if I'm honest. It's a very horde-based game, and again, it's one of those games that's like, if you play with friends, you'll totally have fun. And again, I stand by, yeah, but I could have fun talking, FaceTiming with my friends. So, that doesn't say much at all. But yeah, just it. I just got exceptionally frustrated with this game. Malcolm, bless him, he did not, and he ended up making fun of me, knowing that I was frustrated with the game. But the thing is especially because obviously we were getting trophies and stuff, it relies quite heavily on like you taking all the stuff. Now, in a lot of games, when you get collectibles and that, if you're working with friends, you both get the collectibles. But in this, if you pick up the collectible, your friend can't collect it, and it doesn't register on their system. It doesn't register on their save. So then they have to go get the collectible separately, in the same way as XP and using your abilities and that. And at the time, they were like, "Oh, but then you have to manage who you're playing with and what, who's going to use their ability first and in what situation." That's great. But basically, you're in hordes and you're just like, I need that ability. I need that, or I need that, I'm trying to get that trophy. I need that ability and stuff like that. And in the end, it got to the point where I felt like it was making us work against each other. And that is not what I want for a cooperative experience. I shouldn't be going, oh yeah, I'm totally going to tell my friend where this collectible is. Oh, collect. Malcolm, there's a chest over here. I don't know if there's anything left in it that you can collect. It shouldn't be like that. It should be share and share alike. And especially, Malcolm's very good at running off and getting stuff and forgetting to tell me where stuff is and whatnot. So that's not moaning about his gaming, but I'm just as guilty of that, basically. So it just ended up, and it made me miserable. It genuinely made the experience of cooperative gaming miserable for me, because I felt like we were working against each other at times. And that's not how it is, and I know it's kind of trophy reliant on that sense. If you're not going for the trophies, then I guess it's not a big deal. But we were, and just in a gameplay sense, I felt like it was ridiculous and unnecessary. There are puzzles, and they are either ridiculously easy or insanely, like, just trying to find the things. Basically, you're supposed to match up, like, symbols or light patterns with this tomb entrance. And usually the answer is, like, literally 2 feet away. Sometimes it's at a point where you have to have a friend to tell you the solution, so that then you can... But again, the chest inside, only one of you can open, usually. So, again, that was frustrating. But, and again, I'm not saying that's all the time, but I'm just saying, you get to that point where that's how it feels. And the hordes just felt really... It's just... They're very similar. All the enemies are like the same. You're just taking on variants of skeletons that are dressed in these very tribal, Uncharted-esque jewellery and stuff like that. And you're killing these skeletons in hordes. And just, there's no real story. Like, the charm of the narrator guy, who is really the only person who talks, except for the odd sound bites that come from the 4 playable characters, is just, it gets grinding afterwards. It's like, what will our heroes do? And it's like, I don't give a shit at this point. There's no reason for these people to be together. They have these weird cutscenes where they just all randomly gather around the map and are like, ooh, well, blimey, mate, what should we do next? And you're like, okay, who are you? What are we doing? Why are we together? I was not engaged in the story. I was not engaged in the gameplay. I guess was fun, but again, from a playing with a friend standpoint. But even then, that element was shooting you in the foot at times. And it just got really repetitive and really tedious and really boring, and it just made me miserable. The whole experience was miserable, and I was so disappointed because I loved the Rebellion games. Why Rebellion? Why did you make this? You were trying something in the zombie army feel, but at the same time it just didn't have that same charm. Zombie army is quite empty and whatnot, and when you're dealing with World War II or whatever, you know the outcome. But I genuinely, this one hurt bad. It was mean to me, people. This game was mean to me, and I'm really miserable. So screw you, Strange Brigade. But oh yeah, if you ever wanted to know a game that will frustrate you even more, at number 1 we have Hello Neighbor. And this one I was not exactly hyped for. That would probably be an overstatement. But I had seen gameplays of the betas and the alphas and all that. I saw where it was going. I was genuinely intrigued. And looking forward to seeing what the final product looked like. Especially when we were hearing that the betas were essentially like a fifth of the size of the main game and that. And you're like, oh, okay, oh wow, this might be a big explorable map or something like that beyond the house that the neighbour lives in. No. It is the house with some side mission, like little side things that you have to do to gain abilities. But I think it's been said much better elsewhere that essentially it's a box stacking simulator. And God knows there's plenty of them around, so I guess it's giving you the hint. But just the story again, you're supposed to just pick up from random tidbits and stuff. And you know what? There were some kind of poignant emotional moments showing the neighbour's past every now and then. But otherwise, I was kind of clueless to what was going on. I had no real clue for... I mean, other than I think you were supposed to be saving somebody in the basement. Like, this neighbour, you're breaking into this poor guy's home, and then you're supposed to feel pissed off that he's catching you every time. And I don't know what he does to you when he catches you, except for when these side bits that then show you maybe where you've been put, which was generally actually creepy when you wake up in this fake room kind of thing that you have to break out of. But it's so janky. It's broken like crazy. I got so frustrated climbing boxes and then like falling, or because the actual placing of the box is so broken. Like sometimes you think you're placing it, but it just throws it like against the wall that then bounces back. The physics in this are insane. The ragdolling on like the inanimate objects is just everything bounces like crazy. But also the puzzles. Just there's no intuitive logic to a lot of the puzzle solving, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have to watch somebody else's stream to figure out that I need to put the globe in a freezer and then put it somewhere else, but after a certain time, and then I need to plant this seed, but it takes me like 50 deaths to get the tree to spawn. It's ridiculous. There was just no it kind of used that kind of Sierra, the old point and click logic, that moon logic kind of thing of, oh no, you should know how to figure this out because we're testing you. No. And it would work if the controls weren't so broken that if I say put a bowling ball on a shelf and set that to roll while I run down and flick a switch, I shouldn't then have to be trying to get out of the window to then go to... And in this literal 5-second window, it was... Oh, God, just thinking about that game makes me so angry. And again, I shouldn't have to go watch, say, a video by Game Theory or something to kind of explain what was going on. It was frustrating. I didn't get any game footage because I recorded it on Xbox One, but then my Xbox One corrupted my files, so I have no video footage. I apologise for that. Please do not check this game out. It was disappointing. It was much better in its alpha stage. That's Hello Neighbor just summed up. It just genuinely made that angry, and made me genuinely want to throw the controller through the window. But yeah, that was my list. I wasn't particularly, hateful of any game much. They were all just pretty mediocre, and that was really the kind of really summed up my 2018 experience. So, although considering I've got more on my best of list, then I guess that must be slightly promising. But sorry about this video being late. I'm sorry it's been a little all over the place. I was trying to keep it much shorter, but in the process I feel like I've not talked about each game to the fullest of my ability. So I do apologise if it's not as good as you would have liked, having waited this long. That is my dog throwing his ball around trying to get attention, so I guess I should take that as my hint to stop here. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Best of list should be coming next week with any luck, if I can get around, if somebody lets me record and edit. Please take care, please stay well and safe, and I'll see you when I'm not knocking the microphone. When I'm trying that again, I'll see you somewhere down the line. Bye.